Hi, welcome to Yoga with Lynn and Leo, and welcome to our 18 Days of Yoga collection. This is a 1-hour class and it's not suitable for complete beginners. We recommend that you complete the 18 days of yoga before attempting this longer sequence. If you have a quick look, there's an information button at the top right hand side of the screen. If you click on this link, it will take you to the 18 Days of Yoga playlist. These 18 days of yoga will prepare your body for this longer, more demanding sequence. For this sequence, you will need some equipment. You can see some yoga equipment in the picture here. You will need at least a mat and either 4 foam pads or 3 folded blankets for your platform for the shoulder balance. If you're doing the modified poses, we recommend that you have, in addition, a rolled blanket, a bolster, a yoga belt, 2 bricks, and a yoga chair or any sturdy dining chair will do. You can always use household items to replace these if you haven't got yoga equipment. But get your equipment ready and we'll make a start on today's sequence. Start in Tadasana, mountain pose, inner edges of the feet together, kneecaps lifting. If you're working as Leo is with the modified actions, have a belt. Extend the arms up by the ears. If you're using your belt, you place it around the wrists, as you can see Leo in the blue top is doing. Stretch into your fingertips. Draw the shoulders down away from the earlobes. If you're using your belt, push out that belt to get more action in the upper arms and to straighten at the elbows. Keep the facial features quiet. Release the arms down.
Trikonasana. Take the fingers to the chest, soften your knees and jump the legs wide. Utthita Hasta Padasana. Check that the feet are in line with one another. Lift up through the centre of the body and turn the feet, left foot in, right foot and leg out. Hinge at the hips for Trikanasana. Ground down into that back leg and pull up with the front leg. Keep the strength in the back leg as you extend the spine from the base to the crown of the head. If you're able to turn the body, then look up at the fingers. Otherwise, look straight forward. Take a breath in and coming out of Trikanasana. Turning the feet to face forward. Re-establish Utthita Hasta Padasana. Keep the lift through the centre of the body as we turn the legs to the left. Keep the lift again as we hinge at the hips. Taking your left hand down onto the shin, top arm up. Ground into that back leg as you extend from the base of the spine to the crown of the head. If it's possible to turn, then look up at the palm, but otherwise keep the glance facing forward. Taking a breath in, coming out of Trikonasana. Soften the knees and jump those legs together. Back to Tadasana.
From Tadasana, step or jump the feet wide. Lift through the front of the pelvic bones, extend into the fingertips. Lift your chest. Make sure that the feet are facing forwards before turning to the right. Bend the right leg to come for Virabhadrasana 2. Extend into the fingertips. Make a square if you're able to with the front leg. Press firmly into the outer edge of the back foot and look along the ring finger of the right hand. Come up, turn the feet to face forwards and we'll go to the other side now. So now the right foot turns in slightly, so about 15 degrees. You come up onto the heel of that right foot and rotate at the ankle. Turn the whole of the left leg and foot out. Extend into the fingertips. Keep the spine vertical as you bend your front leg. So in other words, don't lean to the left. You keep the spine upright, keep that left hip lifting away from the left thigh bone. Extend both sides of the side waist and extend into the fingertips. Come up, turn the feet to face forwards, and either step or jump the feet back into the center. Come into Tadasana. Re-establish Tadasana, taking the weight back into the heels, lifting the chest. We're coming now for Utthita, Parsvakonasana, extended wide angle pose. Bring the hands to the center and jump the feet or step the feet apart. Toes facing forwards at this intermediate stage. Lengthen your tailbone, lift your chest, stretch into your fingertips. Turn the left foot in slightly, the whole of the right leg and foot out completely, and bend your right leg into a right angle. Extend, lengthen, and take your hand down either to your brick, as you can see with Leo, or to the floor if that is appropriate. The top arm comes up and over the ear, keeping the elbow locked, the arm straight. Keep pressing firmly into the outer edge of your back foot and keep that leg nice and active. If you're able to turn your brick, those working in the modified action, turn the brick to the lower side. Use your back leg to bring you into an upright position. Turn the feet to face forwards and we'll go straight to the other side. Now turning the right foot in and the whole of the left leg and foot out. Keep the weight even as you bend your left leg and take the hand down. So again, you can work to a brick if that's more appropriate, or with the hand to the floor, as long as that doesn't allow the chest to collapse. For those who are able to turn the head and look at the upper arm, then you turn the head and look at the upper arm. You can see that Leo is just taking the brick a little lower there. You can work on whatever height gives you the best action in this pose. Coming back up out of the pose, turn the feet to face forwards, step or jump the feet back into Tadasana. Taking the weight back into the heels, extending the fingers down, just re-establish your mountain pose. Re-establish that stability and quietness in the mind and the body. Take the weight right back into the heel bones. Lift the frontal pelvic bones up. Make sure that the inner edges of the feet are together. You'll see that Leo, doing the modified actions, has got her mat right back against the wall for balance and has placed 2 bricks towards the back of the mat. From Tadasana, step or jump the feet wide. We're coming into Ardha Chandrasana, half moon pose. So this comes from a Trikonasana action, triangle pose. So we're going to be turning the left foot in, the whole of the right leg and foot out, and extending and lengthening with both legs straight to come into Trikonasana. You can see that Leo is taking her hand to a brick. Lynn has her hand to her shin. From here, we're going to take the top arm down and place it onto the top hip. Bend your right leg. Take the right hand forwards and lift the left leg. So extend that thumb about a foot ahead of the little toe and lift the left leg. Roll and rotate your top shoulder back, and then if you have your balance, take your top arm up in line with the bottom arm. Keep the left leg about in line with the left hip and extend into the inner left heel. Having the hand onto the brick helps to keep the chest open. So if you're having a problem with the hand on the floor, then raise the hand up. So we're stepping out of the pose, coming back into Trikonasana, and then lifting up from Trikonasana back into a standing action. Turn the feet to face forwards, and we'll go to the other side. So now you can see that Lynn is actually moving herself on her mat, just so that she's got a little bit more space, because you do travel in this pose. So turn the right foot in slightly, the whole of the left leg and foot out, come into Trikonasana. Make sure that you maintain the rotation on that front leg thigh bone so that it's really inserting well into the hip socket. Bend the front leg, extend the hand either onto the brick or onto the floor ahead of the foot, and then step in with the back leg and lift up when you're ready. So this is a challenging action. Many of our students find this a difficult pose to do. If you find this a little demanding for you, then have a look at day 14, where we are looking at this pose in a little more detail and approaching it from different poses, which means that you have a different access into the pose. But at this stage, you can use the brick and the wall to help you. So bend the front leg, extend back, and come into Trikonasana, triangle pose. You can place the top hand down onto the top hip to get that roll of the shoulder back, then come back into Trikonasana and then lift up, pressing firmly into the outer edge of the back foot to get that lift out of the pose, and step or jump the feet back to Tadasana. Re-establish a good Tadasana now. Have the inner edges of the feet together, press down into the outer edges of the feet, spread and open your toes. We're coming now for Virabhadrasana 1, Warrior 1 pose. So you can see that Leo is going to take a couple of foam pads and place one on each side of the mat. This is for the heel to lift up onto. It makes the pose a little softer on the lower back, and also it helps with the turning of the back foot, which is a very important aspect of this pose. So from Tadasana, step or jump the feet wide. Get this intermediate action well by lifting the chest, pressing into the outer foot bones, lifting the frontal hip bones. Rotate the arms in their sockets and take the arms up by the ears with the palms facing one another. So we're going to turn the back foot in. It turns in more than it did in Trikonasana or Virabhadrasana 2. So we turn and rotate onto the ball of the foot, and if that's not sufficient, then you lift the heel and place it onto the foam pad, or just lift the heel and turn it. The whole of the pelvis turns towards the narrow end of the front of your mat, and then you bend the front leg, keeping the back leg strong and straight, extending down into that back leg heel bone, even if the heel bone is lifted onto the foam pads. Keep extending up with the fingertips, keep the upper arms close to the ears, and rotate the upper arms inwards. Come up, turn to face forwards, and we'll go to the other side. So you can see that unless that back foot turns in well, the pelvis cannot turn sufficiently. Keep pressing down into that back leg heel bone, keep lifting the frontal pelvic bones up, and bend the front leg. So the tailbone is long, the frontal pelvic bones lift, and the abdomen moves back to the spine, all the while keeping that back leg strong and firm. Come up, turn the feet to face forwards. Bring the arms down, palms facing the floor, and then step or jump the feet back to the center. Stand in Tadasana, lifting the kneecaps, lifting the thigh muscles, getting the lift and extension through the spine, and just letting the breath steady and settle.
Our next pose is Adho Svanasana. If you find this pose challenging, if it's difficult to lengthen the spine, then use a belt. Take a look at Leo in the video. Use the belt around the arms and come into the pose from a bent leg position. If you're quite strong in the pose, then you can see Lynn in the video is in a prone position. Whichever way, tuck the toes under. Press into the palms and come up into Adho Svanasana, dog facing down. Keep the work in the legs and the arms. Be strong in the wrists and extend the wrists into the palms. Pull up through the upper arms, through the side waist. Keep the front of the thighs lifting strongly and extend back with the legs. Continue to scan the body. Be sure that the arms and the legs are straight and lifting. Become aware of your breath. Be sure that the breath is smooth and even. To come out of this pose, either jump or step the feet. As you can see here in the video, Leo is stepping her feet. Just take a few moments before coming up into a standing position.
So we're coming into the next action now. You can see that Leo is now placing her bricks and removing the foam pads. So the bricks come to the right hand side of the mat if you're using them. Step or jump the feet wide. We're coming for Parsvakonasana, which is a forward bending action. If the bricks are not high enough, you can use the seat of the chair. Place the hands onto the hips. Lift up onto the heel of the left foot, pivot on that heel so that the foot turns in well. The toes of that back foot should be pointing towards the top corner of your mat. Lift out of the pelvis and hinge forwards at the hips, keeping the back flat, taking the hands down onto the floor, as Lynn is showing in the classic way of working, or onto the bricks. Both legs remain straight. You extend the breastbone towards the narrow end of your mat. Lift up through that front leg kneecap, thigh muscle, and press firmly into the back leg heel bone. One of the most difficult aspects of this pose is keeping the back of the pelvis level. So you need to lift that front leg, kneecap, thigh muscle and draw the thigh bone back into the socket, pulling it back further than perhaps you think you need to. Coming up out of the action, if you're using your bricks, you can bring them with you and place them to the left-hand side of your mat. Turn the right foot in deeply, the whole of the left leg and foot out, and turn the pelvis. You can use your hands on the hips to help to turn the pelvis towards the narrow end of your mat. And then hinge forwards at the hips, taking the hands to the bricks or the floor. You can take a quick glance at your front leg to make sure that that hasn't buckled at the knee. If the hamstrings are tight, then take the hands up higher. As I said before, you can use the seat of a chair. Also, if you don't have bricks, the seat of a chair is quite a good way to work. If you don't have bricks, you could also use 2 foam pads. Keep lifting through the front leg and extending back into that back leg heel bone. Make sure that your upper back is flat and not becoming concave. Keep the breath fine and even. Keep the quietness in the pose. Once you're there, be in it. We're coming out of the action now, so lift up, place the hands on the hips, and then step or jump the feet back into Tadasana. Standing in Tadasana. You can see that Leo is positioning her bricks towards the front of the mat, and Lynn and Leo are turning for this pose, which is Parivrtta Trikonasana, Revolved Triangle Pose. The legs in this pose have some similarities to the previous action, Parsvakonasana. So you step or jump your feet wide. The bricks, if you're using them, should be behind you. You turn your left foot in deeply, and the whole of your right leg and foot completely. Plant down firmly into your back leg heel. Lift out of your pelvis. Stretch up with the left arm. Take the right hand onto your right hip. Now as you extend and lengthen, you're rotating the spine, and you can take that left hand down to your brick or down to the floor to the outside of your right outer ankle. You roll and rotate the top shoulder, and if you have your balance, you can take your top arm up. If not, keep that top hand onto your right hip, just working on the rotation. Come back into the center and turn to the front. Again, if this proves to be a challenging pose for you, have a look at day 15, which will be coming up in 2 days' time, and we'll be going into this pose, Pavarita Trikonasana, in a little more detail. So we're going to be turning to the left now. Turn your right foot deeply in, the whole of the left leg and foot out. Turn the pelvis to face the narrow end of the mat. Extend up now with your right arm. Get that length and extension through both sides of the body. Both sides of the side waist need to elongate as you extend forwards and rotate, taking the hand down to the outside of your left ankle. Keep the back of the neck in line with the rest of the spine. So you should be looking forwards towards that narrow end of your mat, the front of your mat, rather than looking towards your back leg. If you're able to take your top arm up and keep your balance, then do so. This becomes a very pleasant pose to do after a little while, but it's challenging at the beginning. So don't worry if you're finding it a little bit difficult. Keep persevering. Come up. Press down into the outer edges of the feet and step or jump the feet back into the center. Uttanasana. If you're working in the modified action, have 2 bricks or place a chair in front of you so you've got some lift to the hands and arms. Keep the frontal pelvic bones lifted and take the hands beneath the shoulders, either onto your support or onto the floor as Lynn is showing. Keep the kneecaps lifting. Extend back with the left leg and then stretch that left leg up. So this is a variation on Virabhadrasana 3, Warrior 3 pose. Keep extending the front of the body and extend into the inner heel of the raised leg. Keep the back of the pelvis level. So in order to do this, you have to broaden the gluteal crease of the raised leg from the inside to the out. Release that raised leg down. Look forwards. Keep the lift through both legs. And then when you're ready, stretch back with your right leg, point the toe down, and then lift the whole leg as one unit so that the back of the thigh points towards the ceiling. Don't be tempted to lift the whole of that hip up, but keep the back of the pelvis completely level. Hook in the outer hip of the standing leg. Any of these poses which you find difficult, have a look at the later days, and there will be tutorials explaining the poses in more detail. Release the leg down and lift up out of Uttanasana into Tadasana mountain pose. Come onto your hands and knees. Make sure that the middle finger points forwards and that you spread your hands. If you're using your belt, you put that around your elbow joints. If you want more details on this, then have a look at the subsequent days where we show how to work in different ways in Adho Mukha Svanasana. Tuck your toes under and lift up, lifting the sitting bones towards the ceiling. If you're using your belt, you push your elbows out to the belt. Draw the shoulder blades back down towards your back waist. Your abdomen moves towards your spine, and you completely release your head and your neck. Getting the heels to the floor is not essential at this stage, but pushing back with the legs is very important. Release back down onto your hands and knees. Bring your toes together and your heels apart. Sit back on your heels and extend forwards in Adho Mukha Virasana. If it's difficult to get the head to the floor or to get the buttocks towards the heels, use support. You can see here that Leo is putting a bolster between the bottom and the heels and a brick underneath the forehead. Keep the wrists and elbows lifting and rest down. We're coming out of Adho Mukha Virasana now. We're coming next into Salabhasana, which requires you to lie on your front. Leo will be getting a belt ready for this action. Make sure that you clear your mat of any equipment. Lengthen and extend the front of the body. Be on the fronts of the feet. And just release the buttock muscles and extend into the inner heels. You can fold your arms and rest your forehead onto your arms. We're taking the hands back with the palms facing the ceiling. You can see that Leo has placed the belt around the thumbs. Now Salabhasana is a strong back-bending action. You lift the chest, you lift the feet. The belt around the thumbs just gives a little bit of contact to enable you to release and give you more lift in your chest. You can rest down with your head onto your folded arms or with the arms straight back. We're going to go again, so if you're working with a belt, take hold of the belt, place your thumbs into the belt loop, have the palms facing the ceiling, the shoulders releasing down towards the back waist. On an exhalation through the nasal passages, lift your chest, lift your legs, and breathe, looking along the floor. Release down, fold your arms, rest your head. These are referred to as mini back bends, but they're actually quite strong. They're very good for strengthening the paraspinal muscles. We're coming into the next action, which is Macar Asana. Now in this pose, the hands are held behind the head, so you interlock the fingers. You can see Lynn showing here. You're lifting the chest and you're lifting the legs. Now Leo is putting the belt on around the legs. This gives a little more resistance so that you can get the action with more awareness in the body. So interlock the fingers at the base of the skull and then inhale on an exhalation, lift the chest, lift the legs, look along the floor. Breathe evenly and release down, resting your forehead onto your folded arms. The next pose we're going to come for is another prone back bending action, Urdhva Mukha Svanasana, dog head up. So you can either stay in position if you're coming into the pose in the classic way, with the feet flat to the floor as Lynn is showing, or you can do what Leo is showing here, which is tucking the toes under. So in Urdhva Mukha, we actually lift the pelvis and the thighs off the floor. So lift up, straighten the arms, roll the shoulders back and down, create that space again between the collarbones. Keep the thighs lifted and active, the backs of the legs strong and straight. Releasing down and resting down. You can again fold your arms and rest your forehead onto your arms, just letting the back settle and steady. Allow the breath to stabilize now. Just release the facial features. Let the toes come together, the heels release apart. So we're going to be coming out of the pose now. So we're coming now into Malasana, Garland Pose. You can see that Leo is sitting on her 2 foam pads and has got a rolled blanket just placed in front of the 2 foam pads. Lynn is sitting back onto the heels. So we're coming into this squatting action with the feet together and the knees wider than the chest. Lynn has rolled back into this from a kneeling position. In order to do this, you need to have your heels in contact with the floor or with a support if they don't touch the floor. And Lynn has extended the arms forwards. The chest comes between the thighs. So you can see here that Leo has lifted up from the 2 foam pads. She's got a couple of bricks to place the hands onto. The heels are raised up. The body is extending forwards and the inner thighs grip the outer ribs. Now with Leo, she's sitting up on a height here, but even on this height of 2 foam pads, it might be tricky for you to lift up off the support. So have a look at our tutorials if this is a difficult pose, which will be done in subsequent days. Again, the knees are wider than the ribs and the inner thighs grip the outer ribs. Let the head and neck release. You can see that Lynn has the head releasing to the floor in this action. Coming out of the pose, come back into Dandasana, either sitting on your foam pads or sitting to the floor, pressing down into your bricks or to the floor and lifting the chest. Make sure that you're opening in the chest, extending in the legs, ascending in the spine. We're coming into Virabhadrasana, which is a kneeling action. You can see that Lynn is sitting between the heels with the feet going straight back. This is often very difficult for those who have tightness in the legs and in the hips. So Leo will show how we would teach this in the studio, which is on 2 foam pads. You place the 2 foam pads horizontally between the feet. The knees and the thighs come together. You use the hands behind the knees to pull the calf flesh out of the way of the fold of the knees, and then use your fingers to spread your toes. Place the hands onto the backs of the feet. So we're coming into a Garudasana action with the arms. You can see that Lynn has swung her arms and wound the arms around one another, taking the palms of the hands together. Leo is showing a modification of this action where the arms are just hugging onto the shoulders. This action creates opening in the shoulder region, but the winding of the arms round can be quite tough. So just mark which arm you have on top here, release your arms, and then we're going to go to the other side. So lifting the arms up and either swinging and wrapping or holding onto the shoulders. If you do this pose easily, then make sure that you lift your elbows and move your thumbs a little away from your face to create a little bit of challenge in that shoulder region. Those who are hugging the shoulders, work the hands around the sides of the shoulders rather than the tops of the shoulders towards your spine. Keep pressing down with the tops of the feet and the shins, gripping those inner feet towards your pads or towards your outer hips. And now releasing the hands. We're coming into Gomukhasana here, so you may need to have a belt over your right shoulder. Lift through the chest, roll the shoulders back and down. Keep the fronts of the shins pressing into the floor. Ensure that the feet go straight back. So you can see here that Lynn is now sitting between her heels. For the majority of beginners, sitting on a support like a couple of foam pads or maybe even higher, is necessary in this Virasana action. Extend up with your right hand and bend at the elbow, catching either your left fingers or your belt. Keep that right upper arm close to your right ear and extend down with your left elbow. Keep pressing down into the shins, pressing down into the tops of the feet. Release the arms, and we're going to go to the other side, so you may need to move your belt onto the opposite shoulder. Take the right hand up your back with the palm of the hand facing outwards and take it up as high as you can. Stretch up your left arm, rotate that upper arm inwards to bring the upper arm close to your left ear, then bend at the elbow and catch either your fingers or your belt. Use the belt as traction if you're catching the belt. Keep rotating that upper arm in towards your ear, opening out in that armpit. Now release the hands.
Soft inhalation and soft exhalation. To come out of the pose, take your hands forward, take both feet to the side of the left hip, and then re-establish your seated position. This is preparing for Virabhadrasana twist. As you can see here, the top foot rests on the insole of the lower foot. Lift up with the left arm and reach up as you turn. Take the left hand to the outer side of the right thigh. Back hand to the floor, or as you can see in the video, Leo is taking her hand to a brick. Maintain the grounded action in the left side, left buttock towards the floor. As you ground down with the left side, lift up even more through the center of the body. Take your focus into your arms. Use your left hand on the thigh to get more of a lift. Use your back hand to turn. To come out of the pose, reach the legs out in front of you. Extend the legs before you go to the next side. Just pause for a moment. Reach into the heels, ground down with the thighs. If you're sitting on the support, use the bricks beside the hips to get a better lift. Re-establish the action to your right side. Take the legs. Place the top foot on the bottom instep. Use your hands beside your hips to get the lift through the spine. Reach up with your right arm, turn the torso, and take the hand to the outer left thigh. Use both hands to encourage the lift through the center. Ground down with your right buttock. Broaden across the collarbones and roll that left shoulder back. Soft inhalation, soft exhalation. Continue to reach up through the center. Coming out of the pose, taking the legs out in front of you. Sit in Dandasana. Again, if you're sitting on height, take a couple of bricks for the hands and maintain the lift of the spine. Our next pose is a supine action. We're coming for Supta Tadasana. Come from a bent leg position and lie down. Extend the legs slowly with resistance. Scrape the heels until the legs become straight. Reach the arms down by the sides of the waist. Go and extend along the thigh as if you were in Tadasana. As you reach the arms, keep the arms lengthening to encourage the shoulder blades to deepen their action. Let the abdomen become soft. Flatten your hands to the floor and now extend the arms up above the head, palms facing up towards the ceiling. If you find it quite challenging to take the arms down to the floor, take a look at the video and see that Leo is using a bolster. This is very helpful to get a fulcrum to encourage the arms to lengthen. As you lengthen into the arms, extend into the legs. So we're reaching the arms and the legs into the heels at the same time. Encourage that length between the hip and the lower rib, lengthening the side waist. Let the breath become smooth and even. Keep the length and keep the extension as you take the arms back down to the side of the waist. We're coming for Urdhva Prasarita Tadasana. If you find taking the legs up to 90 degrees a challenge, then have a look at the video and see that Leo uses the belt. If you have length and support in the abdomen, then reach the arms above the head. Take the legs to 90 degrees. If you're not using the belt, then extend towards the fingertips. Reach through the center of the body and extend up through the legs. If you're using the belt, then use the belt to encourage the leg action. When gripping the belt, be sure that your arms are straight. Pull on the belt as you extend the feet up into the belt. Keep the legs lifted and the thigh bones moving towards the back of the thigh. Keep the abdomen soft and directed. See that you lift from the pelvis all the way through to support the spine. To come out of the pose, soften the knees and release the feet to the floor. Either keep the knees bent or the legs straight. Come up into a seated position. Sit in Dandasana. We're coming into a pose called Parapunanavasana, boat pose. As you can see, Leo's taken a belt around the upper back region and the feet. So if you know you struggle with this pose, or when you attempt it, it's challenging, then take a look at the video and use this as an option. Bending your knees and then straightening into the belt eventually. If you're coming with straight legs, extend into the heels. Keep that center of direction lifting from the base of the spine all the way through to the top of the spine, reaching the arms. So this is quite a strong action on the abdomen. It's important to keep the abdomen soft and directed, soft and lifted. Come back to Dandasana. If you find that you collapse your back in Dandasana, then come back to the 2 foam pads. You'll find this way will help you to understand the length of the spine. Take your 2 bricks beside your hips and lift up. Use your hands as a fulcrum. Extend into the heels and ground down with the thighs. From these actions of the legs and the arms, maintain the lift of the spine. Move your shoulders back and create the depth in the shoulder blades, moving towards your back waist. Keep the chest lifted. It's Adho Mukha Svanasana. If you find this pose challenging, if it's difficult to lengthen the spine, then use a belt. Take a look at Leo in the video. Use the belt around the arms. and come into the pose from a bent leg position. If you're quite strong in the pose, then you can see Lynn in the video is in a prone position. Whichever way, tuck the toes under. Press into the palms and come up into Adho Mukha Svanasana, dog facing down. Keep the work in the legs and the arms. Be strong in the wrists and extend the wrists into the palms. Pull up through the upper arms, through the side waist. Keep the front of the thighs lifting strongly and extend back with the legs. Continue to scan the body. Be sure that the arms and the legs are straight and lifting. Become aware of your breath. Be sure that the breath is smooth and even. To come out of this pose, either jump or step the feet. As you can see here in the video, Leo is stepping her feet. Just take a few moments before coming up into a standing position.
Sit up in Dandasana, staff or stick pose. You can see here that Lynn is sitting to the floor. Leo is sitting onto a little bit of height onto her bolster here, and she also has a belt. Lift your chest, extend your heels away from you and draw your toes towards you. We're coming now for Janusashasana. This is a forward bending seated action. You can see that when they're bending the legs in, Leo has the bolster to put that thigh onto. Lynn is taking the thigh to the floor. You may have noticed that both Lynn and Leo spent a little time opening out the area behind the knee, separating out the calf muscle from the thigh muscle. The heel of that bent leg comes into its own groin. Now, if you're working in the modified action, you can take a belt and place it around the ball of the straight leg foot and lift your chest. You rotate the navel towards the straight leg, and you can see that Lynn, coming into the full action, has lowered the body down the entire length of the extended leg. She is holding on to the wrist of her left hand, interlocking the hands behind the foot. This is a very strong and challenging action, and if you have tight hamstrings, this full pose will not be accessible for you at this stage. That's fine, you can just use the belt and work towards it. It will come eventually. Keep the facial features soft. Don't be aggressive in this or any of your poses. However, if you're working with the belt and you feel you can come a little further forwards, then do so. Work your hands down the belt. But don't compromise the action in the legs or in the back to get this. So coming out of the pose, we're going to the other side now. Get the lift first of all through the front of the body. Again, when you're taking that bent leg out, place the fingers behind the knee. Bring the heel of that bent leg into its own groin. If you're working in the classic action, you extend the bent leg arm up and towards the ceiling and then turn the navel towards your straight leg and lengthen the body along the length of your straight leg, keeping on ensuring that the straight leg remains straight. The knee of the bent leg should be down and the thigh resting onto something. This is why the bolster can be very useful for those with maybe a little bit of tightness in the hips, in the hamstrings, because it allows that thigh to release down onto a height, maybe not to the floor at this stage. Let the facial features be soft. Keep the straight legs straight. And we're going to come out of the pose now. So lifting up out of the action and coming into Dandasana, your seated pose. Lift through the front of the body. Have the inner heels together. Draw the toes towards you. And straighten the legs by lifting the kneecaps and pushing down on the very root of your thighs. We're coming now for a Asana twist, so lift your left leg up and bring the heel as close to the foam pads or your buttock as you can. Take your right hand back either onto the brick or onto the floor and hook the left elbow to the inside of your left leg. Have the palm of the hand facing to the right. Keep the chest lifted and use both actions of both arms to get the rotation in the spine. Don't overturn the head, but keep the action coming from the rotation at the base of the spine. Keep the shin vertical and press firmly into the fingers of your right hand to maintain that rotational action. Keep the breath fine and even through the nasal passages. Now release out of the pose. Stretch the left leg out, re-establish Dandasana, and then draw the right leg up into a Macar Asana action. You can see that Lynn is holding behind the knee as she brings this leg up and holding onto the head of the shin to get the lift through the front of the body before taking the left hand around, extending and lengthening the right arm up and using that right elbow with resistance against the inner knee. Most of these twists require traction, and the traction comes from the body. So use that traction with the right arm pressing against the right knee, the right leg resisting that pressure and coming into an upright action with that right shin, and using the left hand onto the floor behind you or onto a brick behind you to add to that rotational action of the spine. And now releasing out, sitting back into Dandasana. So re-establish your Dandasana, make sure that you've got the length on the back of the hamstrings, the lift through the chest, and the straightness on those legs. Keep the facial muscles passive. Press down with the fingertips and extend the spine upwards. Alright, so we're now going to set up for the next action, which is going to be coming into our inversion. So you can see that both Lynn and Leo have got their platform ready. If you're not quite sure about Halasana, Svanasana, that's plow pose, and shoulder stand, then do have a look. We have tutorials in our yoga pose directory, but also we'll be going through this in the next few days. So set your 4 foam pads up as a platform. You can see that Leo has a chair behind her because she is not going to take the feet to the floor. This is quite a difficult action when you first start in yoga. If your hamstrings are a bit tight, or if your chest is a little tight, shoulders are a little restricted. Make sure that your shoulders are on the support. The head is onto the floor. Approximately the base of the skull lines up with the front edge of support. Now you're going to bring your knees into your chest, press down with your hands and roll your feet either to the chair or to the floor behind you. So on an exhalation through the nostrils, roll into Halasana. Be on the very tips of your toes and support your back with your hands. If you find this a difficult pose to roll into, then do look out for an old video that we have, which is a tutorial on Halasana, which is called Halasana Tutorial for Beginners. You can look that up in our playlists. When you're ready, Take one leg at a time up into Salabhasana, shoulder stand or shoulder balance. Keep the hands pressing into your back ribs, extend into the inner heels and look into your chest. Again with Svanasana, if this is a pose that you're not familiar with, then do look at our yoga pose directory. We do have some tutorials and we have a playlist on poses that will help you to achieve Svanasana. Extend into your inner heels. Move your elbows in so that they're in line with your shoulders. And work your hands out of the back waist towards the shoulders, moving the thighs back and the sacrum into the body. So we're releasing out of the pose by taking one leg down at a time, either to the chair or to the floor. And then slowly roll down from Halasana and take the launch pad out from underneath the pelvis and place it under your head. You want to have your head and shoulders slightly elevated above the pelvis and rest with the legs bent so that the back is rested. Give yourself a few moments here just to let the breath steady and settle, allowing the facial features to soften. And now, when you're ready, come up out of the action. The Supine Sukhasana action. So this is lying down onto your mat with your legs crossed at the shins, supported on your platform, and just reclining back into a supine pose. If you don't need a blanket under your head, then just lie back to the floor as Lynn is showing. However, if your head tips back a little when you're lying onto the floor, then a blanket can be a very sensible option. Make sure that the legs are crossed at the shins rather than at the ankles. Let the thighs release down. If you need more support than this, you can always place cushions or rolled blankets underneath the outer thighs. Rotate the upper arms at the root. Draw the shoulders down away from the earlobes and turn the palms of the hands so that they face the ceiling. Just let the fingertips curl in towards the palms of the hands and let the center of the palms feel heavy. Change the cross of the legs. If you're using a blanket, make sure it's just underneath the head and the neck, that it doesn't come underneath your shoulders. Relax your throat. Release at the base of the jaw. Let the tongue be soft and allow the cheek muscles to relax. Soften around the eyes. Relax between the eyebrows and across the forehead. Where the eyelids touch, let that area be soft, don't tighten. Allow the whole of the body to release into the floor. Let your breath flow. We're going to come out of the pose now. Roll to your right side, rest on your right side for a moment. Don't be in too much of a rush. Gently lever yourselves into a seated position. So again, we're coming back into this staff, rod, stick pose. Extend the legs away from you evenly. Draw the toes towards you. Roll the thighs in towards one another. Press down with your fingertips into the floor, or if you need them, put some bricks underneath the hands to lift the spine. Alright, so we're now going to set up for the next action.
Seta Bandha. As you can see here in the video, Lynn is using 2 foam pads and a bolster on top. Leo is using a bolster. So there's different heights. If you have quite a long spine and an open chest and you're able to coil the chest over the higher support, then take the pads and the bolster. Sitting on your bolster, sit at the front end of the bolster. We're going to take the legs straight eventually, so have some support to place your heels onto. The legs need to be in line with the pelvis. As you take yourself back, coil off the end of the bolster. Keep your knees bent and then gradually straighten the legs. Taking the heels onto the top of the support. Reaching into the heels, pulling up the kneecaps and thighs, and keeping the length through the centre of the body. Just let the shoulders release down. Once we are settled in our frame, then it gives us an opportunity to work on other aspects of our practice. This pose is very good to quieten the nervous system. Start by scanning the body. Revisit the legs and extend into the heels. Lengthen through the centre of the body and weight down with the shoulders, keeping the chest open. Quieten and soften around the eyebrows. Release around the temples. Let the back teeth be apart. Watch your inhalation and exhalation. Take your intelligence into the upper body and watch the ribs as they expand on the inhalation and recoil on the exhalation. Take your time and let the breath become smooth and even. You may notice how the breath moves away from the surface. Use your breath to keep the focus within. If you'd like to stay in this pose for a little while longer, then do so. Finish with the Shavasana. For the video, we're going to bend the knees and roll to the right side. Just be there for a moment before coming up into a seated position. Clear your mat and prepare for Shavasana. As you can see in the video, Leo has taken a bolster to place underneath the back of the thigh. Lynn has taken the bolster to take on top of the thigh. So depending on how your back feels, then use the bolster either under the thigh or on top of the thigh. Shavasana is our relaxation. Start to scan the body from the head to the toes. Start with taking the observations within the forehead. Release any frown lines or any tension. Release between the eyebrows. Let there be a smoothness as the eyebrows release. Release the temples. Release the facial features. Release the jaw. Release the throat. And let the shoulders weight down. Become aware of the arms and the rotation in the upper arm. Have the fingers and the palms facing up towards the ceiling. Let the fingers coil towards the thumb. Release the abdomen and let the legs weight down. Come to your breath. Watch the breath as you breathe through the nasal passage. Watch how the ribs expand, broaden, and then recoil. Continue to watch the breath. A soft, slow, passive inhalation and exhalation. Let the whole body release on the exhalation. If there's any tensions, then just breathe into those areas and let the body release a little further. Do stay in your Shavasana if you're feeling relaxed and you'd like to stay a little longer. We're coming up out of this action now. So those of you joining us, then roll to your right side. Just be there for a few moments, just keeping that depth and awareness within. Come up into a seated position. Finishing our practice in a Sukhasana action. If you need to sit on the bolster, then sit on the bolster and just be there for a few moments, a few inhalations.
Thank you for joining Yoga with Lynn and Leo today. If you've enjoyed practicing this sequence with us, please click the like button and subscribe if you want to see our films as they're released, or check out our back catalogue. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Namaste.